Tipping, gratuity, service charge. Call it what you will, if you're heading out to Florida anytime soon, it's going to be something that you're going to have to get to grips with. But who should you tip? And exactly how much should you leave? Don't worry, here at Florida Tips for Brits, we have got you. And in this video, we're going to be going deep into the dark art of tipping. This is kind of straightforward and self-explanatory. If somebody is providing you with a service, the chances are they're working for tips, or at least part of their salary is made up of tips. So you need to be considering whether you should be tipping that person. I'll give you an example that's very, very common. If you go into a sit-down restaurant, so if you go out for a meal in the evening or some lunch, and you sit down and a host is coming to your table and bringing you refills and taking your order and bringing you food, that person you should be tipping. If on the other hand you're going to somewhere like a McDonald's where you walk up to a counter and you place an order and then somebody hands you food, no tipping required. So that one's pretty straightforward and very, very common. That's like probably the most commonly asked thing. Is do I have to tip at like counter services and stuff? No. Or another common example would be like a bellhop in a hotel, somebody from luggage services helping you with your bag. They're going to want to tip. Other common examples that I can think of right now, taxi drivers, should you tip them? Yes. Bar staff? Yes. Should you tip your maid at the hotel? Yes. Parking attendants or valets? Yes. Tour guides? Yes. Restroom attendants? Yes. So hopefully that should give you a good idea of some of the most common ones that you're going to come across. If somebody is performing a service for you, the chances are you should be tipping them. Okay, so now we get into the really fun part of the video. Part 2, how much should you be tipping people? Let's start off with restaurants, because I think that's the one that people most commonly ask about. Typically these days at a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant where somebody is serving you, gratuity is set usually anywhere between 15 and 25%. More common these days is 18 and 25% of the pre-tax bill. When you buy anything in Florida, it always has sales tax added on, and gratuity is calculated as, say you want to leave 20%, you take 20% of the pre-tax amount. Now obviously service charge is based on the level of service that you get, so if somebody has really super gone out of their way and given you absolutely outstanding service, it needs to be more up towards the higher end of that, and if somebody's like less so, then it can be towards the lower end. Also, very importantly though, please don't punish your servers for errors made in the kitchen. So like for example, we've had it before where a server has been excellent but the food's been terrible. That server has nothing to do with the food preparation. They do not cook your steak or whatever. Try and, use your discretion a little bit, but yeah, typically 18 to 25%. Okay, so let's quickly whip through some others. Bar staff. Typically when it comes to bar staff, we're talking about somebody, they make you a cocktail or something like that. They would expect $1 to $2 per drink, or around 10% of the total tab. So if you're just opening up a tab and they're making drinks for you all afternoon or whatever, around 10% at the end, or on an ad hoc basis, $1 to $2 per drink. Bellhops that we mentioned earlier, they typically expect between $1 and $5 per bag, although it is important to note that depending on how difficult the job is, will depend on where on that scale it slides or how fancy the hotel is. So for example, if you're staying at a more budget hotel, they might expect $1 to $2 per bag. If you're staying at a more high-end hotel, Four Seasons, Portofino Bay, the Grand Floridian, they might be expecting more along the lines of $4 or $5 per bag. But if your luggage is particularly heavy or awkward, again, the price tends to go up. So like in our case, when we go on holiday, we've got 5 children, we tend to have a ton of baggage. It's a big job, it's heavy work, all our bags are super heavy, so we tend to tip more towards the high end, no matter where we're staying. And then if we're staying somewhere nice, we might tip over the odds again. We might tip $4 or $5 per bag and then an extra few dollars on top because of the fact that we've just got tons and tons of luggage, so please bear that in mind. Right, now let's look at taxis. Taxis typically expect 15 to 20% of the total fare, rounded up to the nearest dollar. So if your fare is $14.85, you pay the tip on $15, and that is typically what those guys are expecting. Okay, maid service in your hotel, we touched on it earlier on and we said that you could pay it either daily or at the end. It's typically $1 to $3 per day. Again, This is depending on the size of the room, how much of a mess you basically leave it in. So if your room is trashed, you know, come on guys, play the game. On the other hand, if your room's doesn't really need much doing, tip accordingly. I prefer to tip per day, because if you tip on the whole stay, you might end up leaving quite a large tip, and the only person potentially who sees any of that money just happens to be the person who clears up on checkout day. Now that could well have been the same person who's been looking after your whole stay, or it could be that somebody else has been working their socks off your entire time, cleaning up after, you know, making your beds and doing all that good stuff and bringing your towels, and then it's their day off and somebody else comes in on your checkout day and they pick up a nice fat tip. So I like to leave money per day for housekeeping if I'm staying in a hotel. So next, staying along the lines of hotels, let's talk about parking attendants or valets in particular. If you valet park your car and somebody goes and gets it for you, when the car comes back, you then are expected to tip that person a couple of dollars to bring the car back, but you don't tip them until the vehicle is back in your possession. Another common one that you might come across while you're in Florida especially are tour guides. So a tour guide, for example, one we did a few years back is we went to Clearwater Beach. We went on the Sea Screamer, which is a large speedboat, went dolphin spotting and things like that. They have a tip jar, and typically the tip is expected to be around about 10% of the cost of the tour. So if the tour is $25, a tip is, you know, $2.50 or $2 or $3, whatever you fancy, but around about 10% of the cost of the tour. Obviously, you feel free to leave more than any of these things if somebody has really super gone out of the way and looked after you, but typically speaking, that's what they might be expecting. And this one's a little bit weird for us British people because we really don't have them very much in the UK, but restroom attendants. You'll go into places and there'll be somebody just stood there in the restrooms, ready to turn taps on for you and give you hand soap and offer you a mint or something like that. If there's one of those people in there and they help you out and you take advantage of their service, typically they're tipped in small change or maybe like $1 or something like that. So it really is just a very nominal amount of money. Hopefully that's given you a really good idea and a strong head start for your next trip to Florida. No doubt you've got more questions, but we got you because we got this video here, which is 10 commonly asked questions about Orlando, Florida. Maybe check that out next.